Palestine?
سمع الله لمن حمده ربنا ولك الحمد الله.
Or Israel? How much do you know about this country? At the first, let's see some beautiful places from this country. Now let's take a look at this country's history, and have a quick review and see who's actually innocent. Is Palestine the original land of Israel? The land that the Zionists have called Israel today is the land of Palestine. Since Palestine is an important passage to connect the three continents of Europe, Africa, and Asia, it has been continuously attacked by emperors and warlords throughout history, and they always tried to dominate the port cities and trade routes of Palestine. From the 2nd century onwards, the inhabitants of Palestine were generally Arabs who shared a common language and culture. After the advent of Islam and the coming of the seal of Prophet Muhammad Mustafa, although small communities of Jews and Christians remained in this land, but gradually most of the people of Palestine, including Jews, became Muslims. During the long years and in the wars that took place, Palestine was changing hands between the powers of the world until it fell into the hands of the forces of Islam during the time of the second caliph. The Jews, whose other name is Bani Israel and are descendants of Prophet Jacob, and the Zionists were not the first inhabitants of Palestine, but for a very long time, before they came to Palestine, this land was inhabited, and from there, history of civilization it is 1,000 years old. In 3500 BC, the Semitic tribes migrated from the heart of Hejaz to Egypt, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon and Palestine, and tribes such as the Canaanite Arabs settled in Palestine, and the first known inhabitants of Palestine, the Canaanites, were urban and civilized people. They were advanced. They established a government called Canaanea there around 2 centuries BC. About 1,000 years before Christ, tribes called Philistines who came from the Aegean Sea entered this area and took the place of the Canaanites. Long after the Palestinians and Canaanites migrated to the land of Palestine, the Israelites settled in Palestine with Prophet Moses. Later, Hazrat Dawood and Hazrat Solomon established governments in this land. In general, their essence of the principles of Zionism and their goal is to build a religion, a nation, and a state of Judaism, and it tries to bring all the Jews of the world together in the land of Palestine by resorting to expansionist wars. because based on the logic of reason and world laws, one can live somewhere without war, force and killing, and one should not claim the ownership of that land because of living for a long time in a land and not consider it as belonging to its original inhabitants. While the Zionists have claimed the ownership of Palestine by fighting and killing Muslims because some Jews have lived in the land of Palestine for a long time and their prophets were sent there to guide them, and against the logic of reason and all laws, human rights work, and this indicates a purpose, other than patriotism. Throughout history, the land of Palestine has been inhabited by Muslims, Christians and Jews. Belief in the oneness of God began with the arrival of Prophet Ibrahim in Palestine. Islam entered Palestine during the caliphate of the second caliph. After the arrival of Islam in Palestine, the Umayyads, Abbasids, Fatimids and Ottomans dominated this land. After the victory of the Christians over the Muslims in the Crusades, the government of Palestine was given to the Christians for a while. But after some time, the Muslims took back Palestine. In 1799 AD, Napoleon Bonaparte was the first European leader to invite Jews to establish a Jewish state in Palestine. Years later, in 1897 AD, the first Zionist conference was held in Switzerland and it was decided to follow a targeted policy for the Judaization of Palestine. In order to desensitize them, they used the Jewish homeland instead of the Jewish state. However, after 30 years and at the beginning of the First World War, only 1% of Jews supported this plan and it failed in practice. At that time, only 8% of the population of Palestine was allocated to Jews in terms of area, only 2% of Palestine was at their disposal. The events of the First World War led to the issuance of the Balfour Declaration in 1917. In this statement, Britain called for the creation of a Jewish homeland in Palestine. Therefore, during the British rule over Palestine, a large population of Zionists immigrated to Palestine, so that the number of Jews increased 6 times during this period. Israel was established in 1948. At this time Jews occupied 78% of the Palestinian land. The occupied areas included Hebron, located in the north of Palestine, the coast of the Mediterranean Sea, the Negev Desert and the central region of Palestine. Since the West Bank was under the administration of Jordan and Gaza was also administered by the Egyptian government, these two areas were occupied by the Zionists in Amman from 1967 to 1995. Israel succeeded in occupying 60% of the West Bank and 40% of Gaza, which is also in during this period, Israel was able to occupy 97% of Palestine. Palestine-Israel War. With the occupation of Palestine by Israel in 1948 AD, there has always been conflict between Palestine and Israel. The set of these conflicts is called the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. Many governments were sensitive to this issue, but recently, due to various political, economic and security reasons, this conflict has been neglected by the governments. However, the issue of Palestine is significantly supported by the Shias, and the statements and fatwas of many Shia scholars in this field indicate support for the Palestinians. Now take a look at this picture, and see the transformation of Palestine from a few decades ago to now. Thanks for your views, stay tuned for the next episodes.